few weeks ago when I met with Sally, our organist, to plan future worship services, I decided that today's message would be on salt. And I don't know about you, but as long as I can remember, I've been told that salt was bad for the arteries and we should stay away from it. Salt was bad. I don't know about you. Well, recently I read a legitimate study, no alternative fact, it's totally legit, saying that we might become a little too much paranoid about salt to the point that we don't eat enough salt, the salt that we need. And I thought that maybe I could continue my reflection with the amount of junk food we eat, especially since this is a Super Bowl weekend, and make a link that in the sense of maybe if we put a little more salt to increase the taste of normal food, maybe we would eat a little more damaging food. And then maybe the same could be said about our world. Maybe if we would bring a little more of our salt, well, in our society, maybe more people would move away from damaging behavior. I thought I was very clever. Oh yes, I thought this sermon would write by itself. And then there was the terrorist attack in Quebec City last Sunday evening. And to be totally honest with you, I was completely shocked. Most of you might know that I studied in Quebec City. This is where I met my wife. My in-laws still live in Quebec City. I spent the holidays, last holidays, I was in Quebec City. I drove by this mosque one day. And shock. And as soon as I read about it in the news, I went on social media and emails, sending messages of condolence, messages of prayer, messages of support. I tried to contact my friend Sikander, the imam at the Kanata mosque, saying, whatever you need, man, I'm there for you, I'm there for your community. Of course, he was very busy. On Monday, I was invited to attend a vigil at the Kanata Recreation Center and to say a few words. On Friday, I joined our Muslim brothers and sisters in faith for prayers. And through all of this, after all of this, almost a week after, I still cannot get over the fact that these murders happen on holy ground, in a place of worship. Ordinary people like you and me went to pray, and they were shot in the back. Yes, we have seen great manifestation of solidarity across the country. That was great. Nevertheless, 6 men remain dead. Numerous families are shattered. And a whole community is affected in ways that is hard to imagine for most of us. We do live in dark times in a broken world. We are surrounded by people who use fears and anxieties and insecurities to create division and rift between fellow human beings. And I'm not just talking about what's going on in the US these days. This phenomenon is visible across the Western world. Everywhere there are disenfranchised individuals who have been left behind by our global economy. Others who struggle to understand the complexity of our society, who cannot cope with the fast transformation of our institution, or simply cannot connect with their children and grandchildren anymore. And some groups come with very simple explanation for all their problems. You lost your job, you're afraid to walk on the street of your town during midnight. Your country and neighborhood is not the same as you were younger. You feel overpowered, outnumbered, overlooked. Well, it's all their faults. It's all because of them. So let's close our border, let's build walls. Let's rescind laws and regulations that are too permissive. Let's bring back law and order. Let's make sure they are ready to live according to our values. And as I was struggling to find something positive to say in this sermon, I came across 2 articles on Wednesday, almost at the same time. The first article is about a small exhibit in New York City in a synagogue that highlight the little-known stories of Muslims from Tunisia, Iran, Albany, and many other places who risk their own lives to rescue Jewish people from persecution and death during the Second World War. These 2 faith groups, often presented as enemies, also have an important history of cooperation and mutual assistance. And the second article is about the mosque in a very small town in Texas, a town of Victoria, that burned last week under mysterious circumstances. And just a few hours later, a member of the Jewish community of this very little town walked to the house of one of the founders of the mosque and gave him a key of the synagogue for as long as they needed. And these 2 stories brought me back to today's gospel reading, in which Jesus says, "You are the light of the world." In the gospel according to John, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." But in Matthew's, it says, "You are the light of the world." And notice here, it is not, you might be the light of the world if you follow those rules and regulations. It's not some of you, maybe an elite or a group of privileged individual, after proper training will be the light of the world. And it's not, if you leave everything behind, you would be the light of the world. No. All of us, me, you, as we are today, we are the light of the world. And Jesus even goes further in this speech by adding, it's not enough to be the light of the world. We ought to make this light visible by all. And sometimes, it's tempting to withdraw from our world, to say, it's not my problem, it's not my country, it's not my business. Well, they elected this government, let them have it. Sometimes it is tempting to stay inside our safe churches, to believe in some sort of moral superiority, and to make our community almost secret society, accessible only to a few initiated. Sometimes it is tempted to turn our own light inwardly for our own sake, for our own edification, for our own satisfaction. Yes, it's tempting. But by doing so, we just keep the rest of the world in the darkness. We do not give the opportunity to all of those who walk in obscurity to see and experience light. We cannot put our light under a bushel basket. We need to be visible. As Eugene Peterson translated in the Message, we're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. And now that I have put you over there at the hilltop on the light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. And as disciples of Jesus the Christ, we're called to be courageous. We are called to speak up. Each of our voices are strong enough to make a huge difference in a world gone madly cynical and distracted by what does not really feed our souls. When people encounter us, they should see and sense more than what experience in the surrounding society. By looking at us, they should feel hope. They should feel the possibility of a different world. They should feel reconciliation. They should feel outrageous generosity. They should feel radical love for one another, especially for those who are different than us. And as a community of faith, we are called to make our light visible to the world, not to boast, not to pretend we're better, not to pick a fight, but to make a positive difference in our world and in our neighborhood. As this church is doing much, we can continue to share our monetary resources with those who have less, give food to those who are hungry, and provide a shelter, help to provide shelter to those who are victims of violence and exclusion. This church, like many others, can continue to open its door to those who are struggling from various addictions, or sometimes for little projects like isolated senior Chinese immigrant who simply want to sing together once a week songs from home. We can continue, all this church and every other church, to learn from the faith and the culture of newcomers and also of those who were living on this land way before our ancestor came. We can continue to sponsor refugees and say to those who do not agree with us, why don't you try? Why don't you join us and discover what it means to be on this journey? Together we can be a transformative presence in our society. This presence that our society needs so deeply. If only we can let our light be seen by the rest of the world. When horrible tragedy strikes our world, our country, our neighborhood, we often wonder what we could do because we do not feel prepared or equipped for this. And this morning, Jesus reminds us that it's not the case. Each and every one of us, with all our gifts and also our flaws, are the light of the world. And we have this capacity to inspire, to encourage, to motivate those around us. We can follow this call to bring light to all of those who live in darkness, all of those who live in this broken world. And we owe it to God, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to Karim, Hassan, Azedin Soufiane, Abu Bakr Tabti, Mamadou Tanou Bari, Ibrahima Bari, and Halad Bakalsemi. Amen.